The glorious incomparably wise to you. The Saviour of the great compassion, the founder of the full understanding, the field of health with qualities of the vast ocean, to give the one wrong straight, the purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower wrongs, the one path, the sublime reality, to the dumb that pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and so show the path to liberation. The holy field qualified with relationships, who are devoted to the moral precept. To you, the sublime community into the virtue as well straight. Homage to the supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three of the devout homage. To all worthy of respect, bow embodied as men as all realms, atoms in all aspects, with supreme faith and affection. You know, connecting your virtuous actions, of all only perfect virtuous actions, to the view of your mind thoroughly, to those of the teaching of the Buddha, a star of the elaboration of the intellect, an illusion of the propagating world, a dream of like the lightning of cloud, seeing conditions things right. Through these merits may sentient beings to pain and rank of all sin, subdue the fallen fault and be delivered from samsara searching, perturbed by the waves of aging slippers and page 15. I prostrate for the area of you. Thus did I hear one drum, that by the one was dwelling on back of the righteous heart of the righteous being, together with grace to beauty and months of great glory. At that time, the Bible one was resolved with concentration on the category of the soul. On the very practice.
Ona nażala nie ma chyba. To przeczytam.
Send us to the body
Sorry,
practice the activity of profound conviction and wisdom. He said that, and the body sattva master
Bershipar.
said this to the end. Share returns in some to the end to the Lord, for which is the practice the activity of profound conviction and wisdom. To look upon it like this, greatly and repeatedly beholding those five elements, also as empty. Always empty, emptiness is form. Same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness. Likewise, all phenomena. Without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, dangerous, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Which are therefore in there's one form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factor, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no feeling. There is no I element of the soul up to and including no mind and no mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no extinction of ignorance, and so up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and life. There is no exalted wisdom, no awakening, and also no mind. So, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on perpetual wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond fear, they reach the endpoint of nirvana. Buddhas who dwell the 3 times, also manifestly completely awakening, without surpassable perfect complete enlightenment, and relies on the perfection of wisdom. He has borne a much from the perfection of wisdom, and much of great knowledge. He unsurpassed mother, much that equal to the unequal, much that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, to be known as the truth and as not felt. Much of the perfection of wisdom is declared. They have guiding guidance, everybody, and some guiding for his soul. Shall I return the body suffer, suffering to frame the profound perfection of wisdom like that? And if I want to burn from that constantly, then make the one without actually Shabbat saying, well said, son of the land, it is like that, it is like that. Once you practice the profound perfection of wisdom, shall be given the name, the time is rejoice. Bhagavan having no spoken, the venerable Sharma Sutra, the body Sapa Arya, tomorrow. Those surrounding their authority along with the world of gods, humans, the swords, and the novels. For I would joy in holy praise that's spoken by my mother. Next 25 of the Mandana. Daji.
Ajay Krishna Papa, Rami Jini Hidambadi,
Sande
Sande
sende mide gawai duravan parashu jinam je chögö gala jenze jenjene jeta sambe tuje sima
Sabje Chubi Chapur, Bhakti So.
goro ne vidalo sanje jödo jeton
Chanchum Bandu Chamsulji, Targi
Chöjen jeven
Samji,
sanje dumba sanje
Adon Sechi from Chanchu,
Yasumchi Nagi chujin jeven
Sanji, Shows,
sanje
Adon Sechi, Chanchu Badu Dangi Chamsulji,
Nagi chujin jeven
Sonamji,
Noya 당도 군론 공식이라 군론디 아니 단다 칸이야 그 최대 대화 준비 그 이나게다 추기 님부로 저래 물에 대해 근데 그 최대 아니 지구에 대화 준비 최수로 하는 거 녀보다 삼바 공부해야 돼 아니 군론 전주신지시나 아니 대화 준비 최수로 레스로 다 디인디네 예지 추녀야 돼 그래서 지구에 되는 거야 지금 많이 봐 세대가 파마니 그에 가든지 있으면 진신 탐지를 편법하시 줘야지 돼. 아니 년마다 삼보 공부치기 삼심을 보내 꾸노야고 진짜 쉬웠어.
adopting the correct intention. One will listen to this teaching on Mahayana, which really expresses the essence of Dharma. However, for it to be great vehicle, Mahayana, one's mind, one's intention has to be conjoined with bodhicitta. That means that one is listening to the teaching not just for oneself, but solely to benefit the kind mother sentient beings who have been kind to one, like the parents of this life. So to actualize that, one will hear, reflect, and meditate on the teaching solely to benefit them.
야, 다 가고 말아서 되네. 근데 저기 좋아하대. 걔가 상무 인천 가고 그랬어.
Rejoicing that today we have the opportunity to listen to such Dharma, rejoicing in that regard. Fortune.
야, 너 되네. 그랬으나. 아, 잠도 쉐르와.
Mm-hmm.
잠도 그저 남과 산제와지 이나다. 그저서는 just 잠도. 다 남과 참아져야 되라. 아니, 주배군에 또야다. 다외군에 겨원이 쳐오르와.
Mm-hmm.
아니, 주배군에 아니 남과 산제와 참아져야 돼. 아니 때문에 군주스나야 아니 이질론데 로이딩이 잠도 군주스는 just 왜 잠도 지요나 아니 말아서 수 텐데 잠도 얘기 미디 간산데 남바산제 왜 수도 추구를 봐 제가 남바산제 봐 인더 민사디 주변에 차나 군주스는 just 왜 잠도 얘기 저와ቸ고를 해서 봐
Mm-hmm. So in terms of refuge, if one is a Buddhist, if one takes refuge in the three rare sublime ones, Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, but we can also see or validify if someone's Buddhist or not in terms of the conduct and the view. So first, in terms of the conduct, if that person takes as their refuge objects Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha and acts under that context, then by way of conduct, they're Buddhist.
다 다외군에 있는 남바산제 이미세야데 따와가다 차제 시세죠
Mm-hmm.
자기시 그래서나 아니 뒤제 탐제 미다 거래서 봐 뒤제 탐제 미다 거래서 게지게지 주도하는 시리스 아니 사제 탐제 동에 거래서 삭제해야지 묘mon다 제비니 최라 코베 뉴주 탐제다 아니 동에 거래서 시리스 사제 탐제 동에 왔어 아니 최 탐제 용어데 동신 다음에 라시리스 봐 숨바지 해냥일에 되비시와 왔어다디 제주 시디 켈레니 강산들라 다외고네 남바산jewa cha ta do su khodewe shena duje midawa ta dame gnam sha keleni di re ta zo dame gnam sha keleni ji la ta go ne shana ya khode su khodewe
Ibadua.
shana dire chidan pha ta na ta ga da cha je shi
Mhm, mhm.
tujin chawa chi go reswa
So one is a Buddhist from the perspective of the view out of the twofold conduct and view. If one accepts the four seals of a Buddhist, all compound things are impermanent, all contaminated phenomena in the nature of dissatisfaction or pain, all phenomena are empty and in the nature of non-self, and nirvana is peace. But essentially, we could condense that down to that person must, adhere to all things being impermanent, all compounds being impermanent, and then phenomena being in the nature of lacking an intrinsic self-nature, or in the nature of non-self.
ya da ni yu dan da ngzo chebe go ne ni kunjo sun ne su jam do kele na ande la la ja ka we la ja dan du be la ja serwa da ka we la ja duvelabje pijin to simbare ta duvelabje ne kindu kunjo thasre
Mm.
zin sanje kunjo japsto ne sanje ne japsto ne 지 군자 양일라 탐심만 해봐야 맞지 산지 사다에 주인은 산지 구매샵에 두시 샤고야 와 아니 최군절로 잡스트에 이게 레범도들이야 최고 두시 샤고야 다 긴두 군절로 잡스트요인데 아니 다지 샴바 마스테스라고 다데다 데지다 딩나 다데 주줄라 투수 컨투도 그도 투가 채는 야고야
mhm,
다 긴두 그 롱체야 된대야 쿠셔메우치 요아마르 긴두스는 타와다 아니도와
mhm.
타와다 아니게 페주시아게 잘라도 줄라 아니 둘로 남사 줄라야 아니 직배사 아조사샤야당 아니 직든데기 가서 베니메 마셔 치고야 돼 더 두벨랍자든데로
So from that first qualification of someone being Buddhist in terms of the conduct and the three rare sublime ones, we were looking at, in terms of refuge in them, what is to be stopped and what is to be accomplished. Page 65. We've probably covered the first of precepts of what is not to be done, what is to be stopped. Then we were looking at precepts of what is to be accomplished. And we reached the Sangha part on the bottom of page 66, precepts associated with Sangha. With the Buddha jewel, what is to be done, what is to be accomplished is that we are to respect all images of Buddha, however they be they a satsa, a tanka, whatever. And then with the Dharma, of course, to respect the letters of Dharma as if they are representing the Holy Dharma, even a letter. And now finally with the Sangha, it's difficult to do it all the time these days, but what should be done is to never disrespect the Sangha when those who have ordination, to not look down on them, and more closely to even respect their robes and possessions and so forth. Mm-hmm.
안데 대선도 긴두는 랍중 긴두
Mm-hmm.
긴두 데나 랍중 따잔지 바서와 다지 개선롱의 그도 건데 유트들라 미시 신신의 시시 당야당 아니 미녀와스 녀주체야 근데 지겨 말에 아니 데 최당 마던 세제 아니 지단나시 따야당
Mm-hmm.
천중 최수체
Mm-hmm.
데 제비나 근데 마치 근데 리파 빵제 안데들라 근두 근조 나시지 그거
No. And directly it said, isn't it? You should not abuse or despise the Sangha or even those who merely bear the signs of ordination, and also not make kind of opponents out of them by thinking you and me, making those divisions. You should not look at them as opponents in any way, having made arbitrary divisions in terms of your group and my group. Instead, you should treat them with respect as if they were the Sangha. Joe.
그런데 콩시를 항상 구걸해서
Mhm.
윤년 되어 나는 내와니스 버릇하게 껴는 담이쳤어 미 윤년 신이디 베는 신신 나서지가 신 야가 된데 뭔가 열어
Mm.
신 야가 돼서 남자 통고 말아 세상에 남자 버릇에 껴는 따지요 말해서 버릇하게 껴는 담이자 다기 겨울을 파신 다다 좋지 대단히 심지 미쳐워서 왔다 수수 대스네다 쉐베게 받을 배적이다 니 미심이 연대세야 돼 심나라 여러와 남산 통고 말와 남산 교연다기와 말스 니 근데 파메군이 자와 인스타디 아니 펠레야지 교연그리 다야라고 다 아니 근데 기직 쳐야 되게 수수 연대냐면와 수수 연대냐면다
Mhm.
아니 근데 냠바 마세 게네 멤버 녀와치 용미 자스드니 수수 마음 발아야 겐두 두야 차와다 아니 체야게 니 깨와체도야 근데 깨와체스나 아니 타바도 근데 녀미 그 소리인데 쇼비나 아니 깨와지 기타 타바토고 말해서다 근데 손도 근데 템바들 프레미스 세상에 산제게 롱게 뭐서 손도 알아다도서 산제게 롱게 싱고야 되면 이제 저가서나 일레든 데질산에 데우든 데지 토고 요바데 산제기 친구 요인자는 맞어지 산제를 이제유나 아니 가디 지고 거라 가디 맞은 수술을 줘라 거라 어디 숨고요라
And the exhortation to the extraordinary attitude, a direct quote from Buddha himself, and this we should pay heed in terms of cause and result, because Buddha sees the resultant maturation of not respecting Sangha and the benefits of doing so. So if we don't respect this, we get the loss. So those who dwelling in forests want excellent qualities should not look for faults in other people. They should not produce the attitude, I am especially noble, I'm the best. This is because when we are amongst Sangha particularly, we don't necessarily see the qualities because the qualities are in their minds. It's very easy to see faults, but we don't immediately see their qualities. Secondly, if you have that kind of a loose attitude, this is the root of every carelessness, meaning that because you have a view like that, you will create the cause to not reach liberation for an eon. So don't let the contempt for other practitioners arise. Yes.
그래서 게시 덤바다 내조와 챔비스로 아니 템바 세보데라 콤 템바 마보다 세보레라 아니 콤베스라 요와야 템바 마세스레 마보다 레카오도 수수 강배를 보여마샤오시 투투제 아니 사장말이야 샤야 된데기 차례요레스로
No.
그래서 저도다 가담기 시기 냠네 맞아 디시기 요로 가서 구샵치고 제가 구샵치는 수술을 캡사요 이러면서 경험을 말아 요즘 맞는 경험 거라 어디 당한 상마 캐되지 경험되고요 말아 어디 숨고요 그래서
So how Geshe-drom, these masters, acted in the past. Geshe-drom Tompa and the great yogi, instead of stepping over a piece of yellow material on the ground, would shake it and carry it to a clean place. One should train in accordance with their practice, for others will respect you as much as you respect the three jewels. So this is because if, we are respecting Sangha in that manner because we want the profit, we do not wish for the loss. And this is how we get the profit also of ourselves being respected if we act in kind. And don't disrespect. Yes.
좀좀뭐 송도와
Mm.
아니 타와당 아니 서로다 딘데려야 윤딘 찬데 다나 미질라 라니레 윤딘 찔하고 매니 제메스와 윤딘 참다 윤딘 딘데 찬라 윤딘 통윤딘 데라 쿠잡레 용고라 쿠발리고라 호선남사 쿠잡레고라
Youngster, Geshe-drom.
그저 좀좀바기 나도 타와다 아니 여러와 데라 윤딘 찾다 윤딘 미 컨데지 임베이나 타와 아니 컨데지 메이나 수술레 윤딘 하가 네그레레 매베 미지 메스다는데 어디 숨고라
Negarere.
뭐지
Amago.
딘데라 고레 수술레 다 타와다 아니 여러와 데라 윤딘 요레스와 수술레 매베 윤딘 딘데 요레스잖아 미치글레이네
Okay.
수술레 매베 윤딘 네그레레 요니 딘데 요레스
So in Drom Temple would say in terms of when we see monks and nuns, they will definitely possess qualities in their mind that we don't see, that you don't have.
다데다 네 라니 군조라 쿠바 대담지 도와 남자 랑라 치지 쿠바 주스 수수 군조 추 군조 산조 군조 군조 군조라 파 쿠바 체바 대담지 아니 미 수술을 주 구접진이 되는 거래스 본다 봐
No.
하도나 나랑 상말로라 미 구접진이다 가부진이라 가고요래 한 수술 파지 산조 군조 쇼 군조 군조 도절라 파 구접다 저그렇잖아 마음 발라 되게 leg 되고 수술을 주 구접진이 온 거래스 띵인진 게올래 진짜왜 레전은 되부터는 토바 주선다 그래서 나라서 참말로 미지게 지 야구도라야로보다 구샵체야로보다 되는 미만치다 그거요. 아무것도 당하나도 지금 추계는 추대에서 되나 그거로 구샵체는 그거요. 디가게나니 바 미션라 구잡다 가버치 최고요 유사고 그래서 저탄다 안에 군조라 구베체와 대담도 다직 타와도 소남산에 타와 탐제 준비 줄러다 도와다 셰모레스 타나네 수술래야 지금 마음발이나 아니 구베체야다 아니 지 수술라주 가신치야다 근데 줄러도 그래서
Hmm.
근데 손도하대
So you should have trained in accordance with their practice, for others will respect you as much as you respect the three jewels. So, on a causal level, if you respect the three rare sublime ones, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, then just as a maturational result of that, you yourself will be respected as a result of your respect to them, just as in a worldly sense, everyone likes or respects a kind person, and we ourselves like to be respected. So then, let alone mention that if we respect Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, it becomes the cause for liberation and Buddhahood. In the future, you will also be respected, as it says, what kinds of actions you have done, that kind of effects you will obtain.
다디네 수수 군조 숨 수수수수게 랍자디 바괴 랍자다 두베 랍자디 투체 다 투무게 랍자스와 투무스도 산제초 군조 투무게 나도 장도 채워라 되네 아니 수수 랍자 카르카르치 오레 스타디셰 오레로
No. So having looked at the three rare sublime ones individually in terms of what is to be accomplished or what is to be done and what is to be stopped, we now look at what's in common to be practiced in terms of all three objects of refuge together.
다딜라 투와 군조 숨지 캬바 당사 군조 숨하고라 선지 군조 추근데 캬바다 연대 제스 템베 야네 양디 겹스토와스 디제 직제라
Going through these six then, page 67, common precepts for all three objects of refuge. First one, remembering the particularities and excellent qualities of the three jewels, and due to that, going for refuge again and again.
디네 니바디 거디 첨부 제스 템베 다스스 선지 군조 추근데 거디 템베 코네 아니 투다디 최발로 전신사 사와단 자베 푸장부 제상원자 뒤윤다 추부부도 와들 지서지부기 추부부가서 군조선 거린지스 주니 투다디네 추바 제상 사와다 자베 푸푸와서 수수 셀라 푸기야 말이로 담모 수수 마세와 수수 마도고나 아니 푸다 존나네 직도도나 생비 띵내야 푸잖아 추바디도 생비 띵내 푸고 두베 추바스데 아산 징기 추바 치추바 난기 추바스로 아 추월라 망고 쉬어야 다다나서 치추바 난 추바 니 셰셰나 코디아메도 치추바데 뭐스 배 유된 요게 아니 지 칼라다 차다도 저와 신도다 디들이 사이드 예와 난기 추바 사이드 아니 수수 개와사신 요지 개와 자와디제디 추베 수수제제니 야푸야디라 난기 추바 사이드 아니 나도 용한도 지스 지부게 아니 추바 푸바 사이드 랍자래 나 군조선에 잡스 도사나
No. So once one has taken refuge in the three rare sublime ones, one must make offerings. Here, remembering their great kindness, and due to that, exerting oneself at all times to make offerings to them and offer them even the first portion of one's food and drink. So this is before partaking of the food and drink. Best case, you recite that offering prayer, but if you can't do that, then from the depths of the heart you offer. Of course, in terms of offerings, there are inner and outer offerings, many types of offerings. The outer ones are those tangible things, direct things we can offer, such as food and drink and other things. And the inner ones are roots of virtue and so forth.
somebody 닝지 첨부 제스 템베스 도와 신양 주디 데벨로퍼 와스 다 심진 신라 닝지기 템베 보내 아니 심진 신라 잠돌라 거고래 봐
Mhm.
다 잠들어 거스도 저런저다 잠들기 돈바단데 때다 용 싱마르와 다 편연도 셰고 건도라와 그래서 잠들 챵베 있는 편관도 토부이미 다지단 제일만 레리 빼빼차잖아 말한저 심기 동의 줘야 되라 심 샤서주네 야고다와
Mhm.
심 샤서주 되잖아 아니 심게 강에 지태운데 나다 로봇이 군조숨나 예 군조숨 캔 상자를 상당히 그러면서 미 페이지인데 loneliness 말레레 핀도에로 와서
Mhm.
지고를 하는데
Mhm.
군조숨 캔jen스도 수수 로봇이 이제 여버져 지르와 수수 수수로 로봇이 이제 야도와지도 여외 나오려 샹데 수수 지고 타베 초 페이지 미망고 말 깨지 되기도 아베 지고 대대거라
Mhm.
아니 미시라니 아마레 공부도 저희나다 저거 배슈 망고 요니어라 봐
Mhm.
그러나 loneliness 민도에서 되어 먹을 때도 아니에 마디 리그면도 소아디 리그면도 내 가래다 됐다 상로 망고 당고 열어다 상로 망고 당서는 직장도 제대로 열어 이제 가디오 있는 지금 좀 거다 근데 고미하다네 이제 제르무치 고미하를 겨울무치 고미하를 수수 자에 라마도 고미 남에 두수 상당 두수 도와지 예 상당인데
Mhm.
다 수시고 인사에 상로도 레시아고랍니다
Mhm.
도와지데 로봇이지 여서서 강에 뒤도 로봇이지 여 상상리인데 어디니 미션이야 된데 되게 제위나 핀토라 미망보지라 상로 당서도 내베체 아수수 토부 토무 방어를 지메데 칸 민도 당하라니 말아 지고래샤 제가 상로 당다 조로다디 지산 된데 간로 로봇 상로 당라 된데 기지시에 여러다디 시에 잠로 추추딜라 고스도 있다 잠들로 꼬다지 열어갖고 평균되게 시해지네. 탑 해보지 딱 수수게 파마 빈자로 오지 잠들어 오지 그것도 왜나 세대마다 겨원을 편타오라 문에 편 쉬지 타오라 봐. 다시 얘기 그 내가 여만해서 육샤도 된대 말어 탑 해보라지. 예 시지 깨지지 시해지 수수 남미 빈자도서 직잠들로 그것도 왜나 가족이 컨트롤 편타오라 봐.
Now, with this third point, remembering great compassion and due to that, establishing other beings in such a mode of behavior. So really, this point of establishing beings in such a mode of behavior means affording other beings refuge. We don't really know this until we know what are the benefits of refuge, which will come later on. But there is a notion of being able to afford living beings protection, something to rely on when they're going through suffering. And then in that notion, you'd never have this feeling you're alone, because you would recall, or loneliness, you would recall the you would recall the three jewels. You would think, I have a helper. You could never have that sense of being alone. A lot of people ask me personally, do you ever feel like lonely? Because of course, in the monastery in India, we were surrounded with lots of monks and friends, but I never feel that because one has refuge. And for example, Lama Tsongkhapa meditates on His Holiness the Dalai Lama or one's root Lama. One has the sense that they are here. So it's not me that, I have this notion that there are helpers. So it's very useful in terms of the compassion and establishing other beings if you can explain that to them. Because a lot of beings think in the context of their life, they are alone and there's no one to support or help them. But to be able to establish beings in such a way, you have to know the benefits of refuge. This is tremendously useful. How you can help your relatives in a longer term context from life to life, generation to generation. If you could place them in that refuge, how much benefit?
Pena manzo chugunjo di kyamui seshtowa. Lamsa chiranzo tuzula chiran nangba chigore kunjo sunla kyamdo chigore lamna. Ani yungu marwa. Tusi yungu marwa. Tusi lamna jatwaya kora yungu marwa. Ta roba ngaranzo ani pena tuyun ni mi tsik mi jik lung tsawo che tsik dukja lamye dinde ina. Ta chiran tsik dukja di mi la gyo yungu marwa esirwa. Susu ma jiwas, mila ma jiwas. Pena kondo chira mila chi gyo yungu marwa. Pena susu lakwen magic meirwa mesong magic mi shindala mi pash mi di tsiri tango chena. 수수 라고는 주고이나 당부 수수 라고 치그레스 봐. 당부 수수 치그레스. 그냥 콘도스니디 당부 수수 마기워서 그랬어. 아니 책두자 라야 되죠. 당부 수수 마기워서 그랬어. 계산디 책두자 라교요 말했어. 아니 콘도 된요 말했어. 어떤데 라나? 그거 니마 드리네. 먼저 남바스니디 책두자 라교요 말했어도 콘도 사교요 말했어도. 티 말안에 핑기도 제가. 근데 라비나 네 배저 상무시 당거라. 다 책도 잘라 비에서 말해 롱딩 유에서 말했어. 근데 윤 롱딩 그이나 롱딩을 때문에 아니 라마지요 상무 동에서 그래요. 니마 들었네 그 롱관에 빠마이나 아니 텔레 때문에 동에지 그 세루다. 두스네 된대게 남자야라고 하던데 된대게 지 고급돼야 된대 용어로 하다 한다로.
For example, it would be unrealistic to introduce or even to recognize that or explain to others that actually the Dharma jewel is the actual refuge, therefore you must be a Buddhist. That wouldn't be appropriate because you couldn't even introduce that for them to recognize. But you could begin by, for example, advising or highlighting the demerits of harsh speech if that person you know is inclined to do so, because you could say, if you speak harshly to other, it will upset self and other. Meaning that before you harm someone with a kind of a fire or anger, the fire that you hold in your hand harms you first. It scalds you first. So in that sense, it would not be prudent to share that anger or get angry at others because you yourself are harmed. And it's the same with harsh speech. So then you could highlight that trying to reduce such things benefits me. And if you do so and you are able to reduce your anger and or harsh speech, then you are going to be free from the suffering result. So that the opportunities to advise that might be doable.
다 나와래 시와디 자와 간체가 당스. 고바지요나 아니 군조섬나 추네 소와디신스. 지금배 탑신 봉와스. 왕란저 자와 레가라버지 가르치기요나 고바 간대지 두두고요나 당부 군조섬나 소와답제라 아니 다디 나 기부용쇼 내래 된데 야고용쇼 내 총데 야고용쇼 내래가디 자와람데 용쇼 텐데 슬랍데나 배진 쳐라 두고 말아 다네 쳐도 심지 탐지기 치도 아니 산제지 고마도고도 심지 디주도고도 이제 도발라 당고 심지 신라 디주도 쳐발라 라니라 디고도 라니 디주고 도야라 안나도 류서야라 아니 내가 치고도 배샤서고도 어디 저기 치도 군조성이 로데 로과치로 치스로 아니 군조성 로과치로 치 람전치로 치 파제마요 버셔스 어딘데 스테이지서 왔다 그랬어 근데 지금은 수술로 캐나 이제요나 야자 편도 연구요 그랬어
Next one. Whatever you do and whatever you need, worshipping the three jewels, supplicating them, and abandoning all other worldly methods. Here, worshipping or petitioning the three rare sublime ones. It would not be just for your own happiness, that your own business went well, that you got fortune or a good name, whatever. That doesn't really become Dharma. But if your motivation was that due to your actions, you can help sentient beings get to that state of Buddhahood, because really, here you're thinking about the long-term well-being of sentient beings. But in order for that to come about, first you have to take care of your own well-being. For your own well-being to be taken care of, you need to have a good body. And then under that context, you need to work and make a living. So if you worship Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and that, with that motivation thinking, help me to obtain that, may the Dharma become the path and the path be free of obstacles. I think if you approach it with that, then 100% there will be a good result if your conviction is there.
제가 군조 숨라 수수 르 대제 니 될라 차추고 지에 지고 저리 매지게 된 예도서 배저 뒤로다 봐. 이 잡아다 안 지고 맞다. 잡아다 아니 있나요? 그러나야 지 뒤로다 돼. 아니 미자이네 뒤로도 다뤄대. 그나 별로 미가셰베 차되냐? 쟤네로 왔다. 근데 거네. 차세도 다 산지 군주 쇼군주 군주군주를 차세스 디냐냐 랍제. 진당아 신다 당겨요 말에 사신다 공부 말에 다라베 산지 좀 된데 공다 저나 산지 저라리 쇼군주 저나 주 똑바들에 군주군주 저나리 잡스시스. 제제네 지금 담블링이 심지 탐제를 디기 용어쇼스. 동해면 버쇼스 면은 디기 안장 잡제 차선도 여러. 근데 둘로도 데스 교보로도 봐. 칼라니 싫어 뿌다고 쇼든데 계산문다 저거 수고 초초스게 아니 랑라라 차제 도고에서 잘라무케요 말봐 그래 거바 직제 한거 직제 둘로직 태가도 텔라든데 춘주직 대로다 근데 대로 제 해서 메네야 얘네 가서 암도지르시 암도니 드네야 거기 해서라 차제 로시고도 로시 차선도다 다 야미딘데 토르시 유고든데 토르시 요니 여러 다 건조 얌센 아 건조 모터 지고 체를 둘로 지고 건 단도 건조 나기 여래 건조 기우여 말이라 거왜 랑가가라 차제기 제가 동원도 좀다 제 아니 증암다 요 말에 덕바니 요 말에 건조 권한을 깨지티기도 하게 미리지 전화니 가르치기 있을 텐데 한시랑하게 매직한데 권한에 삼바지고 조시 차고 개무게 삼바지고 되와 저는 지우쇼레샤스 먼저 강 뭐라야고요 강바야고요 둘러야고요 당서 지우면도세 아니 다 지우영하라 가르치고 그랬어 권한을 깨지티기도 권한게 아니 촉시에 공부를 해서 촉시로 와 촉시 촉시면은 지우영하여 말했어 라고도 어딘데 라고도 거기 제가 저디 미디어시도 좋아시디 재미삼아 항상 콜라 베샤다 둘러든 거 먹어서 나 거야 말했어 둘러 먹어 마디 나 찍중에 뒤를 먹고 말했어 재미도 배 항상 거서 한 코란조에 차세가 지고다 랜드제네 랜드제네 용어 말아 심팅네 거라 아유
So those that kind of, the word's not sacrifice, give up, as it were, their life, give up this life to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, they're kind of taken care of. Of course, monks and nuns tend to be taken, their needs tend to be taken care of, but even householders, even the lay people, if they're sincere, they're looked after because they're in Tibet. There are people that prostrate and they don't say a lot of other mantras and things. All they say is, I take refuge in Buddha, I take refuge in Dharma, I take refuge in Sangha, again and again because, they know that you are the Buddha jewel, you're the Dharma jewel, you're the Sangha jewel. And they also say, may all sentient beings have ultimate well-being and not suffer. That's all they will recite. And in terms of them, their clothes, they don't have a lot. They're quite ragged. And the food they take is just what they need. So they're on the road, isn't it? So they have enough to cover from getting dust and wounds, as it were, those things they prostrate on. But apart from that, from Ando to Lhasa can take 4 years to prostrate, at which time their Chinese tourists often see them and are amazed at what these prostrators are doing, because the Chinese are, in their cars, nice clothes, often busy, not feeling that well. But then they approach the prostrators and who are actually looking quite radiant with not many worries. They're quite relaxed. And they ask the prostrators, why are you so relaxed? We have these cars, houses, and so forth, but we're not so happy. To which the practitioners reply, we are content. We're just content with what we've got. So then oftentimes the tourists will offer the prostrators things like clothes and money, but oftentimes they say, I don't need clothes, I've got all I need, I've got all I want. And then sometimes the Chinese try to copy or mimic the prostrators. That might be fine, but it has to come from the heart, doesn't it?
저는 건저 다 저랑게 면람식 겸나 하러 저랑 면람식 겸나
Mm,
가르자기 있으러 면람식 겸나 두고레스 근데 람나 저랑 가르자기 있어 건저 겸에도 라고도
yeah,
아니 저디 바디발라디 네 면람데 semje 탐제라 디기 용어쇼스 담불링 디시디 용어쇼스 마두 마요 버쇼스 semje 탐제 동해 마요 버쇼스 어디 삼로가나 심 띵네 디윤 잡대 것은 디잡대 재미도 항상 아니 니 저랑게 나 기부 용어쇼 제라면도 하세 아니 나 기부 용어쇼 라는 기부 용어 말해서 심지 신 기부 용어쇼 슬라브레스 심지 신 기부 용어 나 기부도 심지 신 기부면 나 기부면도 한 건서 재미도 항상 그러고 삼로 단단데 멘다 실지르셨어 먼저 있는 나랑 기부 용어야 되는 가리는 치고요레스 근데 기부 용어면도 거나이나 심지 신 기부 용어 잔여레셔 그런셈을 기우도스 다도서 지 추기 신럽 추기 시작돼 추기 누가 때문에도 알아
So then there was a case of one of the Chinese asking this old father, Tibetan father, practitioner, when you're doing this, what do you pray? And he replied, I pray that the living beings, sentient beings, have ultimate well-being and bliss. The world is in peace and then there's no war. And then the Chinese asked, you don't pray for your own happiness? You don't pray, may I be happy? To which he replied, how can I be happy if sentient beings' welfare and happiness is not accomplished? Why would I pray for my own happiness? They thought that unusual, that you wouldn't pray for your own well-being, but you'd pray for the welfare of sentient beings. And this shows the blessings of Dharma that this practitioner had to be able to have that altruistic view.
어디 시와디 제라다 나와디 펜션에 인연선 천년선도 잡스도 하잖아 뭐저 잠도 넘버 선제지미나 아니 잠도 쇼베 차순다 건단 차순 중간에 튠튠 제제 되는 거래 먼저 배워들 라들 남발라들 되네 튠튠 냠내 제야도 카제도 냠바치기도 알아 그 주주 딱다 심버데 사자 가와이나 최지기도 문에서는 딩냠바도 카제도 라렌 쇼다기도 카제도 튠튠도 냠내 지고 있어 봐. 저 추규는 먼저 리기도 돼. 튜두 같이 돼서 남당도 봐 랑가도 봐 주주의 신스나는 배무도 양식도 봐 옛날보다 혼자들 봐 이나 남주 남바이나 다 쇼베 차르숨 권다 차르숨 된 거래 단다디 산제 추조디 야고도 봐 산제 추는 소리 쇼는 지주가 단 계속 제다 이제 요 돌아봐 산제 도 쇼사야 돼 쇼베 차르숨 권다 차르숨 돼 바디 직 태어서로 많이 보지 바로바로로 봐도 이제 도망가도 등게 구중 앞주 두주 봐도 이제 심나가 처리를 해야지 또 어떻게 해주지 잠도 쳐야 돼 순나가 처리를 시고 오라 간단 용달래 저 쇼베 차숨다 고다 차숨 용달래 있는 땡고 여러 어디 랍자리다 걔네래도 하대
No. So now, having understood the advantages of going for refuge 3 times a day, 3 times at night. So we talk about these kind of successions, don't we? And if we think about Islamic practitioners, they have something similar, but they do it according to quite a strict time. So you oftentimes, and actually that's something there, isn't it? It's quite good. You'll often see them like, even where they are at the airport or whatever, they go to make those salutations. So anyway, perhaps this doing a certain number every day is not just Buddhist, but in other faiths such as Islam. For us, we are committed to do three times in the morning, 3 times at night. You know, I go for refuge to Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and so forth. And the point is, of course, we don't have to do it 3 in the morning, 3 at night. Some days you could do more, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then break it, or even do up to 50. Because the point is with the refuge that your mind is moved with feeling, with kind of a conviction. Anyway, at least we should do 3 in the morning, 3 at night.
근데 갈치는 지고래요 와
Why do that? 3.
저 주주지 신나다 야면은 니모 싫어라 야면은 지나고는 싫어라 주주지를 싫어라 싫어라 시외 내가라 니 짬도지 텐시면은 시도비나 그러와 진다다 저 자천보다 지워지 상담도 나나 군조선은 자스트에 짬도지 텐시면은 니 짬도 동야 주주 같고라 니 짬도지 잡지 짬도 뜻된신 바 짬도지 수주를 요여신 시비나 치명의 손 제거 말다 한다. 좋아.
No.
치명의 손을 제거 말 장도 대도 줌진데다 저 줌진 다 하나래 봐.
Why then 3 in the morning, 3 at night? Because one can die in the morning, die at night. Sorry. One can die in the morning or night, and if you die, then you would have, let aside that you won't have gained a vast and deep, profound understanding of Dharma, but at least you would die with refuge recently in your mind. And that is one of the benefits of refuge, isn't it? That it protects you from an unfortunate migration. So that's one of the powers of refuge listed. No.
아니 근데 심 띵라 얘는 그래서 미다 미만이 너왜 미투세. 장도 표현을 해 봐.
Yeah.
미게 누구 말했을 때. 그러나 미지게 책도 자지 라위나 수수심데 군조선의 자수 장도에나. 응? 다가 남가 산제버지니 미디 갈 책도 자가나다. 서 공부해서 봐. 아래.
No.
산제 글랍잘라니 셈 먼저 셈제 탐제랑 마치뇨 말에 셈제 신의 대화치고래 당에 밀 컨트롤 유파샤 이제 대화치고래 상을래요. 미신기 수수수 내가 견조데 수수를 소투고면도 알아. 아니 제 수수게 내르롱조로데 미팅 트러블이나 다디 나가 산제버지를 렌데레 티 겨우만 말한게 미신다가 바 트러블다 구버데 체인지를 당에데 바꾸선래상 상로인데 다셔도 야디 누구면도 하고 진짜 미 메뉴사야 돼 상로스탄다 미마이게 메뉴사야 돼다 로규나나만 오요래 잠도 제어되는 미마이인도 도토고요 뭐 잠도 수수 잠도 제대로 내가 달라 미마이인도 저 볼내어 제토고요 말아 어딘데게 니 수수 강에 된데 제도 잠도체 로 링이 되나 동해에 껴에 로주된데 망고 요래 봐.
So, when you face difficulties, that going for refuge, if it's done with deep conviction, that's very important. Another benefit of taking refuge is that one is not harmed by humans and non-humans. Because, if you're harmed directly by humans, for example, you can remind yourself, oh, but I'm a follower of the three rest of blind ones. I'm a follower of Shakyamuni Buddha. I'm supposed to cultivate patience here, recalling that each and every living being in the past life has been my dear parent, my mother, and I'm supposed to have a loving attitude to all. So let alone not get angry back, you can bear the harmer. You're supposed to bear the harmer. And also when you find people that are down and out, that need a hand, maybe materially, you can help them thinking that that past lives, they helped you. So there are also historical accounts of people that have faced difficulties and obstacles from non-humans, but when they do refuge with deep conviction, the non-humans can't go there. In other words, they can't harm.
수수 잠도단 덤벌라 이지 숙청부에 내 나자든들에 껴에 로주 요르다 봐.
Yes.
먼저 단단한지 초보지 요래. 나만 그 자가 주용. 네 아무나 그도 슬라지 파친 별친. 아니네 별친네 주 별로 대다. 바로 한시다 요 말아.
Mm-hmm.
주민도사네 주용을 양자 주용. 주용도 샤 공부 주는 용 강이길. 먼저 다와직대지 강이길 하다. 아니 뭐지 달라 강 통고 장 공다 강 쇼지 반네 고 옥체로셔네로 옥체로셔 구조자매 그치 아 미신다 상만데 고 구대는 미 상마 시도서 미 야주급주여서 미 망고여서 아니 건조 지나 디그마 땅 아샤는 청도 욕스러 나한테 샤는 청도 욕스 한 건조 도제 권한 그 초보대 땅아 고 마시사고 되게 있어 아 그저 자투고야 말다 욱 참아 조네 그저 자투고야 말 강길 아니쇼 바고도 살아
Mm.
아니 다네 코란다 디 로고드니 우체로시도 치고도 사페 그래서 그저 자면도 사 게르셰면도 사 단다디 겨울은 마친 게 만도 게나게 자만한 게 또 주셔로
Mm.
한 덤바디 코란 고간데 샤 코란 디둥마 자갈이 용단데 덤바 영혼도 디 덤바더라도
Mm.
덤바디 치도고 있어 가네 덤바디 우샤다 저나 melanya 우자스로 네 melanya 저나 melanya 아니 단다다 디 덤바디 덤베 구데 예스 아니 네 kunyi 산제 추도죠 코신다다 암조 년대면 이게 셰도 말아 그러나 산제 추도죠 melanya 한 사람들로 코 꼭도 로사 주 그런 배신이 그런데 저 수군을 외로워지 내용제 꼭도 누구도 줄래지 이 세베서 봐 왜 세베서 고 공부자도 살아
Mm.
공부자도 아 미ዛ마 친사를 강단도 나가서면 팁차를 나가야 맞다 아 그냥 돈바샤는다 말람지 겨데 근데 지 가서 리그 타고도 가보시는데 통구도 살아
Mm-hmm.
다 다가라나는 도시아가 있어. 전화고는 되네요. 저기 강리 그 강쇼 땅서. 아니 산이 쇼베 님 마샤 거는 강리 더블레서와. 근데 근데 로버트는 다 군이 시타르스 만남된 시타메. 군이 시여 말해. 군이 말레 레샤라. 저는 저기 잠로다. 덤발라 이지 야 강에 된대네. 잡았는데 중요한데 열어다. 당어도 배배나 같은데 배 거야 뭐 왜. 미드즈 강에 제대로 좀 봐나 와제레시다 지준 좀 하다 근데라 소답디 근데 잡에 로지 하데 좀 년부터는 막 오셔야다 무슨 중요하다 나 좀 중요 말이야
Mm-hmm.
근데 내 도고 그냥 오신 거구나 그런 자갈에 근데 주요는 계시 단체라 제가 어딘데 근데 누가 열다 누가 열어 야 지지 용거래에서 라디오만 민ጆ든데 말해 수수 이 배들을 징기 깨베이나 지글이야 열 걸어
So there are many instances where relying on the three rare sublime ones when one's in danger can afford protection. I had one acquaintance in India, one monk, one friend whose mother became ill back in Tibet. So he went back to Tibet to take care of the sick mother, but then conditions in Tibet were extremely difficult in terms of one's freedom. So he, uh, got quite sick, but for 1 month, he decided to come back to India, under those circumstances. And then it was a long time trying to go through the snow mountains. There was so much snow that he could not breathe and began to get dizzy. And the party they were with, they had to leave because this practitioner got so sick. And they said to the others in the party, "Oh, you guys go on ahead." And one other monk said to this one, "My friend, it's okay. I'll stay with you till you die," because he was losing breath and getting dizzy and could hardly move. And it would have been the case that if everyone had stayed due to the thick snow, they would not have made it. So this, friend of mine thought they were going to die and could not move. But the person staying with him, yeah, the friend that stayed with him had a small Buddha statue, the one that you get when you take Gailong ordination from His Holiness in India. So he had that with him. And then he said to my friend, "Okay, I'll pray and you pray." So he placed that statue on his friend's head. And then, in dependence on that prayer, somehow there was like a light that came into that person's body, the person that wasn't moving or breathing. It's almost like they woke up. And then he could walk. So they started to walk, but because it had snowed so heavily, there was no clear road anymore. But they saw in the distance there was like a cave. So they took refuge in that cave during the night because it snowed a lot. And the next morning, the friends that had left them behind, they prayed, they were praying for them because they thought they were dead, but they didn't die. So they met up again. So there are many stories of refuge, genuine refuge in Buddha Dharma and Sangha like this. Either refuge in the three rare sublime ones or one's faith in Shakyamuni Buddha. So many stories from Tibet of having faith in Shakyamuni Buddha, Chenrezig Tara, Solwada, which means to have the petition, the faith. These are not made up stories. These are real instances. And so, for example, this one I just reiterated was a friend of mine who subsequently became a geshe. So there is that potency then, if you lay down your life for Buddha Dhamma Sangha, to be protected.
I think another story maybe you may remember Biliba and Buddha that you never heard before. I was sharing this one, and this makes me more interesting for Dharma, more practice, because I have one uncle, little bit far away relative. He was 1959 and he's prisoner.
Prisoner.
With him, 300 people in the Congo area sent there. And they're not enough food. Every day, 10, 15 people dead, starving, 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 no food, not enough food. And that time, and he said, my uncle said, he pray for Tara. He is special prayer for Tara. That's his heart. He can't decide in prayer. That's hard prayer for Tara. And he nearly dead. He nearly dead, and he went to wash his clothes in the river. And he falling down, and in the river, no energy, no food. And then there one small, one child girl. And she bought some samba pop, one pop like that. And she give him this. And tomorrow, this time you come here, When he went every day, and she gives some small her being his house, but and this helps my uncles stay alive, And then every day she give a little bit like this, bring him her house. And then later, 2 years later, and then China's president give more food and more freedom go to the village. And then my uncle went to this girl's family's place. And then their family, they never know that she give this part for my uncle. She's very keeping secret, right?
Yeah.
I met this lady and she came to my uncle's place. And then this time my uncle told, she saved my life. She saved my life. My uncle think this is a gift for me, Tara, This kind of story lost in Tibet. Today the Lujubema were in
No. So many wonderful stories like that.
My other uncle, little uncle, he was army. This story. He and I think 7 or 8 people, they take one America is an intelligent person, listening sound from China. My uncle, they went to helping him, big mission, carry big mission. And then one friend and slept under the crush that they followed. Ice curtain, long ice curtain, he falling down.
Crevasse, ice crevasse, yeah.
And then they heard some his sound, but can't see, And they taught to some bed clothes, nothing happened. He's a long way, and then they all left our food, extra clothes, purpose him, and they went. And he got some clothes, extra some food, and he eat. And 3 days, and he's just moving, and all food is gone, and then he tried to pray for His Holiness Dalai Lama. He looks unconsciousness, and he went up there, crown.
I was woken by a crow,
Big,
a black crow.
In Tibet they have one, and they're talking. He saw one, and then the crocs are prawns are
Crow.
and he still moving. His eyes like that, and they show some part like this moving, and he try, and he hand is become this, hand become ice, and he cracked, and hand this ice become, and he all this what called the
Lost the skin.
Lost,
Mhm.
and finally he got on the top. And then my uncle, they did for prayer for if he already dead in the TV for 1 week later, and he came out. My uncle told, and his fingers just lost a bit. Otherwise, and he said, His Holiness Dalai Lama happy. That does a jamdo get the
No. So those are related to conviction in refuge.
That is
Stop for today. Kashi, Jushi, Metta, Tra, Rira, Linshin, Nide, Gyampa, De, Shinto, Mete, Buraki, Chokon, Namda, Shinla, Cherpa,
Nanga Tine Chochu Lozan Dembe Dome Sasumji. Yodi Yoda Messenger Vajibana. He is a lava show, she is given a huge joy. Never the power show, which and never fish is in a way so many gentlemen and you can. I don't know, so the down Cheres and Cheres, there will be you and change. He is a national that to young national. I don't know, never joined us and tried nothing by a
the wish granting to every single benefit and happiness in this world. That even from the kind things and gaps all I see. My only wishes is spontaneously fulfilled. Savior, the Son and teachings and times my great name. Good my teaching declare the power to see the relation of continuous and compassion. The Lord is all the sins and gaps all I see. I only wishes is spontaneously fulfilled. You will welcome such your small way, the serve for the bountiful girl of hope, sustaining, preserving, and spreading on your last victorious doctrine, and I must really accomplish magnificent prayers on her trade film. Save of myself and others, your disciples, please, hope in return. For our line on the accumulations of myself and others in the church signs, and the teachings of the conqueror of the kingdom of the Lord, and long live his prayer. Yeah, let's see the jar and way of the Victorious one. The product of the particular Victorious one, then father and sons of all the big masters. Holy objects of refuge of good for hands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of the function that's great in your man. Holy and spreading the way to persons and complete teachings. Your explanation of righteous people will be on with patience, so that they would starch. Your careful and word to you on your goodness. While striving single-pointedly to select the Victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway for the total benefit and happiness of life, and the whole knowledge of things is done with life for the regular. Nevertheless, we began to see the truth of the blessings of the ocean of great jewels, and the great grace of gratitude of the children of Victorious ones. Let us now great punishment for giving glory to the